Well, the seventh man in my book, Seven Men and the Secret of Their Greatness, just looking at his picture, I'm going to get choked up because this is the only man in the book that I knew personally. Boy, did I love him. Before I loved him, I admired him and respected him. Chuck Colson, one of the great figures of the 20th century. In order to get into my book, you had to be not living. So Chuck was not supposed to be in this book. But when he was on his deathbed a little bit over a year ago, I knew that he needed to be the seventh man in my book, Seven Men. And in case you're scoring at home, he bumped Abraham Lincoln. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lincoln's ticked. So Chuck Colson, why is he the seventh man in this book? Well, like everyone in the book, I'm not going to do the Canadian joke again because it's probably not working. But let me say this. Like every one of the men in this book, he did something profoundly sacrificial. What he did, like Eric Liddell, like George Washington, he sacrificed something that, by all accounts, he shouldn't have sacrificed. Every reasonable person would say, no, don't do that. And here's what he did. He was, in case you don't know his story, he was one of the leading figures in the Watergate scandal, a genius. He was the 39-year-old wunderkind who had the ear of the President of the United States, one of the close advisors to President Richard Nixon. In the midst of that amoral and sometimes immoral atmosphere, rose to power, loved power, very ambitious. The Watergate scandal happens, and then Chuck, really before it came crashing down, he became a Christian. The press couldn't believe that this hard-nosed, they called him the White House hatchet man, do anything to get the president elected, sort of dirty politics, that this guy became a Christian. Nobody would believe it. He became a Christian, and because I knew him personally, I can tell you this man was the real deal. So he becomes a Christian, and now the Watergate scandal breaks, and his lawyer, he had a pretty good lawyer, says, guess what, Chuck, I got you a plea bargain. You're not going to have to go to jail. All you have to do is say you did something you didn't do, but don't worry about it. You just, play the game, and you won't go to jail. Well, Chuck, because he'd become a Christian, and because he actually took it seriously, said, yeah, I can't do that. I'm not going to lie. If I have to go to jail, I'll go to jail. His lawyer, and I tell this in the book, went crazy. He said, you don't understand. No one does this. You take the plea, shut up and take the plea bargain. Chuck refused. He says, I won't do it. Talk about the ultimate sacrifice. He goes to jail. He leaves his family. He is utterly humiliated. That's the real sacrifice in the public eye. Goes to jail. When he gets out of jail, he makes another sacrifice, which is as unthinkable as the first, probably more. He decides to go back into jail for the rest of his life, to dedicate his life to working with prisoners, to sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with prisoners, not just in the U.S. jails, around the world. He did that for 35 years. Every Easter, he would celebrate Easter in prison with the prison inmates. This is a man whose story is not as well known today as it was when I was younger. It needs to be known. This is one of the great men of history, the only one in this book whom I knew personally. As I said earlier, I loved him, and to be able to talk about him, to get his story out, to let you know who he was and what he did, it will be an inspiration to you. I heartily recommend the story of Chuck Colson.